Claire Monroe had always been drawn to antiques, their quiet whispers of the past offering her a sense of comfort in a world that never seemed to slow down. So, when she stumbled upon an old curiosity shop hidden in a narrow alleyway she'd never noticed before, she felt an irresistible pull. The air inside smelled of dust and forgotten things, and the dim lighting cast eerie shadows across the cluttered shelves. Her eyes landed on it almost immediately, an ornate, gilded mirror tucked away in a corner. Its silver frame was intricate, curling vines wrapping around delicate roses. The glass so clear, it almost seemed to breathe. It felt alive. "You have an eye for rare things," the shopkeeper's voice startled her. He was an older man with deep wrinkles and watchful eyes. "But be careful with that one," he added in a hushed tone. "It shows more than just reflections." Claire laughed nervously. "What's that supposed to mean?" The shopkeeper's lips pressed into a thin line. "Some things aren't meant to be seen before their time." Ignoring the warning, Claire bought the mirror, hauling it home with an odd sense of satisfaction. That night, she hung it in her bedroom, running her fingers over the cool glass. As she stepped back, a strange sensation prickled the back of her neck. For a moment, it looked like the reflection lagged behind her movements, but she brushed it off as exhaustion. The first time she noticed the mirror's power, it was innocent enough. She was brushing her hair when she caught a glimpse of her phone ringing in the reflection, seconds before it actually did. She blinked in confusion, staring at the mirror, then at her phone, the caller ID flashing. Coincidence, she told herself. But it happened again, and again. At first, Claire was fascinated. She began to test it, watching as it reflected events moments before they happened. Her cat knocking over a glass, the mail arriving, even a conversation with her best friend before she spoke the words. She felt powerful, like she had a secret advantage over life. But then, on the third night, everything changed. She was getting ready for bed, pulling her hair into a loose bun when the reflection shifted. Her heart stopped. The mirror no longer showed her peaceful bedroom. Instead, she saw herself, lying on the floor, eyes wide, mouth frozen in a silent scream. Blood pooled beneath her, soaking into the carpet. Claire stumbled back, nearly tripping over her own feet. The scene remained frozen in the mirror, an unblinking horror staring back at her. Her trembling hand reached out, touching the glass, but the image didn't fade. And then, just as suddenly, it snapped back to normal. But she couldn't shake the fear. Something terrible was going to happen. Claire couldn't sleep. The image haunted her, creeping into her thoughts like a poison. She avoided the mirror, covering it with a sheet, but she could feel it lurking beneath, waiting. She started seeing pieces of the vision come true, small, unsettling details. The red scarf she had seen around her neck in the mirror appeared in a package from her sister the next morning. The exact shade of nail polish she had worn in the reflection suddenly appeared at the back of her drawer. It wasn't just a warning, it was a countdown. Desperate for answers, Claire returned to the antique shop, only to find it abandoned. Dust coated the shelves, and the mirror's spot was empty, as if it had never been there. She searched for hours, but the shopkeeper was nowhere to be found. Frustrated and terrified, she started digging into the mirror's history. Late nights spent at the library revealed a disturbing truth. Stories of its previous owners, all of whom had met tragic, untimely ends. An old newspaper clipping confirmed her worst fears. A woman in the 1940s, found dead in her home, had claimed in the weeks before that the mirror was showing her murder. Claire's hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. Her last hope was tracking down the mirror's previous owner, an elderly woman named Eleanor Kincaid. Eleanor lived in a decrepit house on the outskirts of town, her frail frame barely more than a shadow in the dimly lit living room. When Claire mentioned the mirror, the woman's expression darkened. "You should never have taken it," Eleanor whispered, her voice trembling. "It doesn't just show the future, my dear. It reveals what's already set in motion." "What do you mean?" Claire's voice wavered. Eleanor sighed, staring into the distance. "The mirror? It feeds off guilt, regret. It shows you what you fear the most, and if you're not careful, it makes sure that fear comes true." Claire felt a cold dread creeping up her spine. "Is there any way to stop it?" The old woman hesitated. "You have to face what's waiting for you. Confront it head on. Otherwise, it will happen exactly as you saw." Claire returned home, her mind racing. She couldn't ignore it anymore. she uncovered the mirror, staring at her reflection with grim determination. She had 3 days. Suspicion gnawed at her. Who could want her dead? Her ex-boyfriend Nathan had a temper. Her estranged sister, with whom she shared a troubled history, had been reaching out lately. Even her boss, who had always seemed a little too interested in her personal life, crossed her mind. The mirror didn't lie, but it didn't tell the whole truth either. Claire started noticing how the people around her acted differently. Nathan showed up unexpectedly at her apartment, claiming he wanted to talk. Her sister left vague messages, hinting at family secrets Claire never wanted to revisit. Even her neighbor, always friendly, had begun watching her with an odd intensity. The pieces were coming together, but nothing made sense. As the deadline loomed, Claire tried to fight back. She attempted to destroy the mirror, smashing it with a hammer, but it didn't even crack. She tried throwing it away, but it always reappeared, gleaming, waiting. Finally, the night of the 3rd day arrived. Claire sat in her living room, waiting for the moment she had seen in the mirror. Every sound sent a spike of fear through her, but she was ready. The knock came. Heart pounding, she opened the door. Nathan stood there, his eyes dark and unreadable. "I just want to talk," he said again, stepping inside. But Claire saw something in his hands, something glinting in the dim light. It all clicked in that moment. The betrayal, the pain she had ignored, the way he always said she never listened. Claire didn't hesitate. She grabbed the knife she had hidden beneath the couch, and as he lunged, she struck first. Blood pooled onto the floor. But this time, it wasn't hers. Breathing heavily, Claire turned back to the mirror. Her reflection smiled at her, a dark, knowing look in her eyes. The mirror had shown her the future, but she had rewritten it. Or had she just played her part all along? The mirror remained, watching, waiting.